Most free-to-play players think they're behind before the KvK even start. And honestly, I think that's because they're asking the wrong questions. I was reading a discussion recently where somebody asked what tech should be a free-to-play before a KvK? Question mark. And the answer were completely different. One player basically said, max everything your academy allows. Another player immediately said, that's impossible for a free-to-play player. And that's when I realized something. How can players know if they're behind when the community can't even agree on what is ready looks like? And I'm going to share with you my story here with this account that I'm currently having. Obviously, right now I'm little, developed. I don't know when this video is going to come online, so I may actually even be better developed. But when I start playing, even though I was spender, I was so behind everybody else. And by behind, I mean there was like people with 3 million power, and I was like 900k, close to 1 million. And I was like, okay, I was having Minamoto very high level. It's like it was like 5311. I was having Chow Chow. I even buy the daily bundles for Chow Chow, and at the same time, what else? I mean, there was a lot of things. I invest in this account, and I was seeing everybody is actually before me. I tried to enter in some of the alliances, I've tried to enter in the top 3 alliances. I get accepted just because this parrot mean that you're actually spender. So the people was thinking I was spender, and I was really spending, but they was expecting maybe I jump from 1 million power to 10 million power in one day or something like this. So I get kicked non-stop. It was crazy frustration from back in the days. So this is my personal story about feeling behind after comparing my accounts with the other, and also other comparing their accounts with mine account, because I think most free-to-play players compare themselves to ideal account instead of realistic account, and that's a dangerous comparison. Now I want to point out something that I'm not free-to-play player, but I start as a free-to-play player like the first couple days, but I can clearly see what the free-to-play player experience. If me as a spender experience that, imagine what a free-to-play player may actually experience here. But here's where the things get interesting. Even if you could max everything, should you? Because not all tech matter equally. Some upgrades look important because they're expensive, some look important because they take forever, but the strongest free-to-play accounts I've been seeing usually don't have everything upgraded. They have the right things upgraded. That's a huge difference. And right now I'm going to give you an example of a tech or investment that look important but didn't change fight as much as expected. And one of the things I actually did here is before I go for the tier 4, as you can see right now I'm doing the tier 4, I can basically speed up this thing. I have tons of speed ups, by the way, but I'm not going to do it. So before I actually jump over the important thing, which is a tier 4, I guess for the tier 5, it's going to be long road, maybe, not like 100% sure. But here, I actually heavily invest over the research, 10%. The other thing is getting engineering, building speed, 25%. And obviously mathematics, which is extra 15% research speed. From this tree, this is the only thing that I max. As you can see, I don't even care about the gathering speed. Even though that at one point I'm going to level up them, but this is not important researches. Here, this one is also not that important. This one is also not that important, even though I can say it's important because at the beginning you're not actually having that many troops, so you're basically trying with less troops to gather more resources. So this one is like this. Maybe it's important, but yeah, this is the tier one that is extremely important. On the first look, it's not like boosting your legion. It's not going to increase the damage you're doing. It's just increasing the building speed and research speed, which don't reflect in any kind of power boost on the battlefield for your legion uh, at the end of the day. So yeah, this is one of the examples of tech that is extremely important, but didn't are not going to change the fight anywhere. I mean, not as much as expected. It's just not going to change nothing there. Then I noticed another mistake. A lot of players try to build everything. A little infantry, a little cavalry, a little archers, a little bit of everything. But free to play doesn't have enough resources for that. The account that seems strong usually focus on one main march and plus that as far as possible and push that as far as possible, which creates a different question. Maybe the goal isn't finishing your academy. Maybe the goal is to make one march strong enough to create value. And this is exactly what I'm doing right now. This is exactly what I'm doing. I didn't actually push, by the way. Let me just show you my legions. Commander, troops, details. Right now, I didn't actually push anything. As you can see, everything is looking similar. But at one point, when I decide what I'm going to use, I'm going to definitely push the troop. Most likely, I'm going to push for the cavalry. You may ask me why. Obviously, I have Minamoto, but before KvK Star, a lot of people, since I stream on this channel, you can subscribe for this channel. Also hit one like on this video if you enjoy these stuffs. But I stream and the people was telling me, yo, UCG is going to come in the game, and this is extremely solid hero. And I saw him. This bad boy, I think, is giving like 50% hero skill damage. So I definitely maybe I'm planning to go with cavalry in the season one, or at least I'm going to focus one march, and this is going to be most likely cavalry. I'm going to think about if I'm going to invest on Miyamoto, but if you're not able to have Minamoto, I can suggest like going with Chow Chow and Sun Tzu, or Sun Tzu, because it's easy to be awakened. I didn't spend anything on this bad boy, it's already awakened. But also Charles Martel is good with Charles Martel and Sun Tzu, or Sun Tzu and Yasuji. A hero that still is not here but is going to come. Now, one of the latest heroes that I get was where is this bad boy? Yeah, Richard won the Lionheart. But yeah, my point is there is so many heroes. We cannot build all of these heroes. So I'm going to my personal experience about focusing over one troop is just going to get all the investments I have and put it in one legion, and making this legion extremely strong, from this to spread over many legions. And me as a spender, if I do that as a spender, the free-to-play player for sure have to do that if they want to have some good results on the battlefield at the end of the day. But then something weird happened. I've been seeing players with similar tech get completely different results in KvK. And if tech is everything, that shouldn't happen. One player perform well, the others struggle. Why? Because tech isn't the whole story. Healing matter, resource matter, activity matter, fighting section matter. I've been seeing players blame their tech when the real problem was the fight they decide to take. And you may ask, but Burgas, how you actually know that? Because you're prep KvK, and I watch a lot of KvKs, and I speak with the players directly in the KvK. So I'm going to give you an example of reports where decision making matter more than account stats. This is one of the reports I have. Oh my god, the battle experience. Here we have some other. Well, right now the majority of the battle reports actually have expired, which is not something Very nice. But yeah, slowly I'm trying to collect some information just to be prepared for the first KvK. Um, this is some of the reports that I actually receive when there's even some people sending me yeah, this is the hero. Oh my god. So this ESCJ was the hero that we're looking to get before the KvK even start. And that's the discovery that changed my opinion. I don't think the best question before KvK is what tech level should I have. I think the better question is what fights is my account prepared to take? Because those are two completely different ways of measuring the progress. Most players measure what they're missing, strong players measure what is usable. And maybe that's why so many free to play players feel behind when they actually aren't. They are comparing themselves to perfect account instead of asking whether their account can do the job. Because KvK doesn't reward perfect account. It rewards useful account. So I'm curious, before your first KvK, what did you think was holding your account back? And looking back now, was it actually your tech or it was something else entirely?